off this countdown, we have the Santa. In December 2011 in Berlin, a Santa Claus at the Alexanderplatz Christmas market was going around drugging young women after offering them a shot of alcohol. First off, I don't know about you, but I would not accept a beverage, let alone alcohol, from a dude dressed as Santa Claus. But apparently he convinced one girl to take a shot with him. Thankfully, the girl was with a friend who didn't take the shot. The one that did was left violently vomiting. 8 other women were victims to this as well. Some even passed out completely. So what did we learn today, folks? Do not accept drinks from strangers, even if they're the Easter Bunny or Cupid or Santa Claus. Moving on, at number 9 we have Killer Claus. I'm sorry, but what? Well, I'm sorry. Take a look at this mall Santa and tell me this isn't a character from the Purge series. Seriously, isn't this the mask that the characters in the Purge wear? I think so. Also, where are his eyeballs? This dude either has the biggest eyelids ever or he has no eyelids at all. I really don't know how that kid is smiling because Santa is looking quite creepy. And honestly, same with that elf in the background. If I pulled up to the mall and saw that thing sitting there, I'd grab my kid and leave so fast. That is not okay. In our 8th spot, we have Santa the Homicide Detective. Bet you didn't know that Santa used to solve murder cases and has the power to bring dead people back to life. This is a legend shared by French families on Christmas. In particular, they would tell their children about the story involving 3 kids that got lost in the woods. While trying to find their way back home, they stumble upon a butcher's house. They knock on the door and ask for help. However, kind of like Jack and Jill, the butcher invites them in and fattens them up. Then when they are sleeping, he chops them up and makes them into a meat dish to then sell. 7 years later, Santa is on the case. Don't know why it took him 7 years, but okay. He ends up showing up at the butcher's house and asks him for some meat. He then confronts him about the missing people, sticks his fingers in a barrel of his meat, and then those 3 kids come back to life. And then they all lived happily ever after. I don't know about you, but that story kind of ruined Christmas for me. Santa needs to stick to the North Pole and helping his elves and Mrs. Claus, not murder victims. Moving on, at number 7 we have White-Faced Santa. So you're telling me that someone actually let this man out in the mall to take pictures with children like that? No one thought, hey, maybe ease up on the makeup, you look like a scary porcelain doll. The rosy cheeks and nose look anything but jolly. His skin literally looks fake, like he's wearing a mask, but he's not. And you're telling me that kids willingly hopped on his lap and parents were like, yeah, no, he doesn't seem sketchy at all. Excuse me, he looks like a demon from my nightmares. I've never seen a scarier Santa. Moving on to number 6, we have the disease spreader. Back in December of 2006, it was discovered that the local mall Santa in Toledo was actually a carrier for the bacteria that causes meningitis. Turns out that he was spreading this to parents and other visitors. You know how many people the mall Santa sees daily? Hundreds. That means hundreds were exposed to him. Santa himself was an asymptomatic carrier of it. As a result, hundreds of families were notified, and those who got really close with Sandy Claus were put on antibiotics as a precaution. Way to go, Santa. Way to ruin Christmas. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Santa. Santa, the camera is this way, and her eyes are up there. This seems like the most action Santa has got in years. Not only is he getting frisky there, but he's not even being casual about it. He's fully staring at her boobies, and he's trying to cop a feel. That is very inappropriate, I'm telling Mrs. Claus. But in all seriousness, let's hope that this was a joke and that the poor woman was comfortable with it and consented to it. In our 4th spot, we have the indecent exposure. Imagine being young and excited to meet Santa Claus. You're standing in line, eagerly waiting, when all of a sudden, Santa gets up and pants himself, exposing his candy canes and Christmas bulbs to everyone. That would be pretty traumatizing. Well, this happened in real life. It happened at the Walnut Grove shopping mall in Flagstaff, Arizona in 2014. Apparently, the mall's Santa Darnell Kendrickson got all upset because he wasn't allowed a break. So in retaliation, he went back to his Santa's chair, dropped his drawers, and began to touch himself. Thankfully, He was arrested shortly after and he was fined $50,000. And obviously, he was fired. What's sad though is that no one came to post his bail, so he was stuck inside prison over the holidays. That's not very merry. Moving on, at number 3 we have Jack Nicholson Santa. Now why did I name this the Jack Nicholson Santa? Well, see for yourself. Here's Santa! Does he not look like Jack Nicholson from The Shining? Yes he does. Why did Santa need to peel his eyes wide open like that? And what's with his facial expression? I'm genuinely concerned. It seems like he's on or he's hyped up on caffeine. Either way, I wouldn't want to get close to him. Next thing you know, he whips out an axe from under his chair and starts hacking up his elves. Moving on to number 2, we have alien claws. I don't care what anybody says, aliens are real, and this right here is an alien. This is not a human. This is an alien pretending to be Santa Claus. For starters, what's up with his forehead? Didn't know Santa had that bad of a receding hairline. Maybe that's why he likes wearing those red Christmas hats. He's over there looking like Megamind. Not only that, but what is on his face? I can't tell if it's prosthetics or a cheap scary mask. Either way, he looks terrifying. Santa's also looking a little stressed. Like, look at all those forehead lines. Someone get this man some milk and cookies ASAP. Again, my question is, why did they think Santa actually looked good like this? Like, who allowed this? Starting us off this countdown, we have Gryla. Gryla is a creature from Icelandic lore that is said to come after kids that have been naughty throughout the year. That's far more terrifying than receiving coal. So Gryla is a giant woman that is said to live in the mountains. She has the ability to sense misbehaving children, and she keeps notes on all the kids who have wronged. Then on Christmas Eve, she will kidnap these kids and make a stew out of them. I mean, that would frighten anyone from misbehaving. Later the legend changed so that Gryla was the mother of the Yule lads, and they would all go around pranking those who are naughty. Either way, Gryla is not someone I would ever want to encounter. Coming in at number 9, we have Belschnickel. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and, you know, spread that holiday cheer. If you're a fan of The Office, then you for sure know what this creature is already. Belschnickel is a creature from German folklore that dates back to the early 1800s. It's described as an old man who delivers cake, candies, and nuts to good children, but will whip the naughty ones on the back. This dude is terrifying looking. He's just like filthy and covered in fur and dirt. Even if he gave me candy, I don't think I would accept it from a creature looking like that. Moving on, number 8, we have the trolls. This is a Swedish legend that states on Christmas Eve, little trolls gather together and have one big party. They either hitch a ride on a wolf or a witch's broomstick in order to get to the meeting place. Then once all together, they have their own little Christmas party. I mean, hey, who says cryptids can't celebrate Christmas? It's said that if you are quiet enough in the mountains, you'll be able to hear the trolls laughing and dancing and drinking the night away. Moving on, number 7, we have the poisonous poinsettias. This is a pretty famous legend that still continues to spook overly cautious parents. So legend goes that you should never decorate your house with real poinsettias. Legend goes that they are poisonous when eaten. So then rumors were being spread like wildfire about kids and pets dying after eating some leaves of the plant. But apparently they aren't as dangerous as we have made them out to be. Obviously, if you eat it, you won't feel too hot, but it would take hundreds of leaves to be eaten before it makes you feel ill. I still don't recommend people and pets eating the plant though, but it's not as deadly as arsenic. And at number 6, we have Sinterklaas. People in the Netherlands have their own different legend and traditions they follow during the holiday month. So they have a different version of Santa in which he basically looks like a pope. They call him Sinterklaas. He's still got his big white beard but can be seen wearing more royal looking attire. So in the Netherlands on Christmas Eve, that's when families gather for a large meal and exchange gifts. Then at night, Sinterklaas goes from rooftop to rooftop giving good kids candy and presents. The children leave out carrots or oats in their wooden shoes for Sinterklaas and his horse. Yum, because he just loves eating that out of shoes. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the glass pickle. So this is a strange legend surrounding a long-time tradition in Germany. So legend goes that on Christmas Eve, families in Germany hide a glass pickle ornament somewhere on their family's Christmas tree. The kid to find the glass pickle the next morning will receive an extra gift from Santa. The first adult to find it gets good luck for the whole year. The only problem being, it's just a legend, and people in Germany don't actually do this on Christmas Eve. They heard it and they're like, that's not right. So it seems like this whole thing was created by maybe someone who wanted to sell more glass ornaments for Christmas or something. Coming in at number 4, we have the talking animals. Not all of us are Eliza Thornberry and have the gift to talk to animals, okay? But did you know that there is one time a year where your pet will actually have the ability to talk to you? Yeah, according to this Polish legend, every midnight on Christmas Eve, your pet will gain the ability to talk to you. But do you really want to know what's on your pet's mind? No. This legend has a much darker ending. It's believed that those that have heard their pets talk will then later die. Another version of the legend states that at midnight, pets will talk to each other and then plot revenge against their owners. So yeah, maybe just keep an extra eye on Fido and Mr. Whiskers on Christmas Eve. Moving on to number 3, we have killer claws. If you're a fan of the 90s show Tales from the Crypt, then chances are you've heard / seen this legend. But it's this legend that probably ended up inspiring that show's episode. So the legend surrounds a woman who on Christmas Eve killed her husband. While disposing of his body down a well, an emergency warning is released telling everyone to stay indoors because a patient escaped from an asylum and is on the loose, killing people while dressed up as Santa. The killer ends up coming into this woman's home and tries to kill her with an axe. The woman tries to outsmart him and the police by saying the killer Santa was the one that killed her husband. But her plan fails when her daughter ends up letting the killer into the house, being all like, "Look mom, Santa's here." Then sadly, the woman gets axed. In our second spot, we have the visit from the dead. According to Scandinavian folklore, there's a legend that on Christmas Eve, the dead rise and revisit their old homes. So the living will prepare for this to happen and make their place welcoming for them. After they finish having their own party, they clean the house, leave the fire burning, have some candles out, and leave food on the table. They even will wipe all the furniture and chairs down. This is for when the dead return to their home. Then in the morning, everything is cleaned and wiped down again. If you find dirt in your house, well, it's said to prove that someone from the grave really did visit your home. Coming in at number 1, we have chimney claws. This is probably another urban legend that you've probably heard at some point in your life. So the story goes that on Christmas Eve, a man decided to dress up as Santa and slide down his house's chimney in order to surprise his kids. However, while making his way down the chimney, he got stuck and died of asphyxiation. Later in the night, his wife goes to light a fire in the fireplace and, well, they started to smell something quite strange. When she investigated, she saw her dead husband's face down that chimney. Yikes. Starting off this countdown, we have mincemeat pie. Is anyone here actually a fan of mincemeat pie? Or like how old you have to be before you actually enjoy eating it? Well, if you said you do like it, I'm sorry. This legend might deter you from ever eating it ever again. Legend goes that this popular Christmas dish was invented in the 16th century as a way for humans to cook and eat other humans. Yeah, you heard me. Apparently back then some people would add humans to their mincemeat pie. That's where the meat came from. That is disgusting. Rumor has it that this legend is the reason why mincemeat pies no longer have meat in them. At least most don't. So maybe think twice at the dinner table if someone serves this dish. Coming in at number 9, we have reselling donated toys. Imagine donating a bunch of toys to the less fortunate only for a store to take your donated items and resell them on their shelves. Pretty scummy, right? Well, legend goes that back in 2002, Walmart was doing just this. So in November, a Toys for Tots rep was outside of a Walmart in Colorado collecting toys for tots. Well, when they came back the next day, the toy box was empty. All the donated toys were placed on the shelves. Now apparently this wasn't wasn't done with malicious intent. It was done by complete accident, or so they say. There was some miscommunication between the store manager and his employees, and the toys were taken from the donation bin and put back on the shelves. Yikes. Wouldn't surprise me if other companies do this on purpose though, just saying. In our 8th spot, we have the chimney death. This is probably one of the most famous Christmas urban legends, and it scared the crap out of me as a kid. So legend goes that on Christmas Eve, a father decided to dress up as Santa and slide down the chimney to surprise his wife and kids. However, while trying to get down, he got stuck and died of asphyxiation. That's not all though. His wife didn't know what her husband was doing, so later that night she lit a fire. And shortly after, she realized a weird smell coming from the fireplace. When she looked up to see what was going on, she saw her dead husband's face staring right back at her. Way to ruin Christmas. Now apparently this is just an urban legend, whereas others insist that it is indeed true. Moving on, at number 7, we have the poinsettias. This is another fairly famous Christmas legend. So poinsettias are often given as gifts around the holidays, but apparently they are very deadly, especially to pets and the young. Legend goes that eating the leaves of a poinsettia will kill you. So many people thought this was real that they were throwing out their red leafy plants. But turns out this is just a legend. A study found that humans and pets would need to eat about 500 leaves in order to get sick, which is unlikely to happen in the first place because apparently the leaves are very bitter. So if someone were to take a bite out of it, number 1, they'd regret all their life choices, and 2, they wouldn't get sick and die from it. Moving on, at number 6, we have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Apparently the origin of this song is incredibly dark. Legend goes that it was created by a father to comfort his daughter whose mother was dying of cancer. Told you it was incredibly dark. So it was written in 1919 by a man named Robert May. At the time of writing the song, his wife was slowly dying of cancer, but apparently it wasn't written to distract his daughter or cheer her up. It was written as part of a promotional campaign for the department store that he worked for as a copywriter. I don't know who made up that legend in the first place, but that is very dark. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Killer Claus, another very famous urban legend. It was even featured in the 90s show Tales from the Crypt, Christopher's favorite show. Basically, legend goes that on Christmas Eve, a wife ended up killing her husband. That same night, a patient from a psych ward escaped and went around killing people in a Santa Claus outfit. Eventually, he managed to find his way to this woman's home and goes around chasing her with an axe. The woman tries to outsmart the killer and the police by saying that the killer Santa was the one who killed her husband. But her plan fails when her daughter ends up letting the killer into the house thinking that it was the real Santa Claus. And I'm sure you can imagine how this ends. The woman ends up getting axed. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Moral of the story, don't kill people and don't try to outsmart killers. Coming in at number 4, we have the deadly Christmas trees. According to this next legend, people that have real fresh Christmas trees should be careful, for their tree could contain parasites that can make you incredibly sick. So legend goes that some Christmas trees have dormant ticks or tick eggs. When you bring them into your home, the ticks will become active and can go around biting your family or pets. As we all know, some ticks carry Lyme disease, which can make you incredibly sick. And apparently one female tick can latch 2,000 eggs under the bark of a tree. Imagine 2,000 eggs hatching in your home. Nope. I'm out of there. Well, thankfully, this is just a legend. First off, ticks are less active during the winter. Not only that, but ticks aren't born with Lyme disease. They get it after feeding on a diseased animal. So if a tick were on your tree and hatched, chances are it wouldn't be carrying Lyme disease. Plus, the odds of this all happening in the first place is so low. In our 3rd spot, we have the Candycanes. Do you love festive minty candy canes? If so, sorry, this next legend might ruin them for you. So legend goes that candy canes were created as a homage to Jesus Christ. If you flip that candy cane upside down, you get a J shape. J for Jesus. Not only that, but the white and red colorway is symbolic. The white symbolizes his innocence. The red, well, it symbolizes his blood. Isn't that merry? Obviously, this is just a myth, but some believe it to be real. If it was real, I don't know about you, but I would feel weird sucking on candy meant to represent Jesus. In our second spot, we have the coded message. So apparently the 12 Days of Christmas song is just one big Christian coded message. So apparently the song was created as a way to spread the Christian faith during a time in Europe when having this faith was punishable by death. So the song was a way to help young Catholics learn the tenets of their faith. For example, true love is code for God. So on the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me, aka God gave to me. And each gift that he gave is referenced to important articles of the Christian faith. For example, 10 Lords of Leaping are the 10 Commandments. 6 Geese a-layin' is the 6 days of creation, so on and so on. Now, this has been debunked, but you decide what you want to believe. And in our number one spot today, we have the exploding Christmas trees. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not allowed to have real Christmas trees in my apartment complex for the fear that they will spontaneously catch on fire. Apparently, this is a common fear. If you do have a real Christmas tree and you let it get dried out and then have hot Christmas lights on it, well, you're just asking for a problem. Now, it turns out that there is some truth behind this. Christmas trees can catch on fire if they do get really dried out, but they don't just randomly explode or combust like in the legends. Plus, the odds of it catching on fire are very rare. From 2006 to 2011, only 230 Christmas tree related fires happened. Nonetheless, please still be safe this holiday season.
Coming at number 9, we have Matilda Rooney explodes. The last thing you want to happen on Christmas is your wife to explode in front of you, but not everyone is so lucky. For this story, we need to go back to the 1700s. Matilda and Patrick Rooney were an old couple that didn't have much to do on Christmas, or many friends to share it with, so they decided to invite John Larson over to spend some time with them on this Christmas night. The three of them would have a wonderful dinner, and after an evening of some drinks, John found himself sleepy and decided it was time to go to bed. He woke up in the middle of the night because he could smell smoke. He just assumed that someone was burning a fire outside, and he decided that he would go back to sleep. Well, when he woke up in the morning, he would find something much more deadly than a small fire. There was a pair of burnt feet that were singed into the ground and a deep hole of ash. It looked as if an extremely intense ball of heat incinerated something on the spot. John was shocked and rushed to find Patrick, who was found dead. Apparently he died from smoke inhalation. None of this made sense because there was almost no way that someone could have lit Matilda on fire without burning down the house. It would seem that she spontaneously combusted. And guys, make sure you hit that like button because it really helps us out. Coming in at number 8, we have the cat food console. I'm sure you guys have heard of the recent debacle of people ordering PS5s and them not arriving, but instead they get a big box of cat food at their front door. If that happened to me, I think I would spontaneously combust. But as it turns out, this isn't the first time that something like this has happened. Well, kinda. This story was pulled from Reddit, and while it's not as brutal as the first two, it's still just as scary, I think. A Reddit user talked about how on Christmas, when they were only 8 years old, they were ripping open presents under the tree. They were having a great time, and then they got to one that really changed the mood in the room. It was a box of cat food. They were shocked at first, and then they were upset, but they quickly understood that this was a joke, and then they turned to laugh with their family. But the look on their parents' face was pure horror. Apparently, this box of cat food was supposed to be a laptop. They had wrapped the gift themselves. His parents were shocked and grilled the other members of the family who were there, but no one knew what was going on. In the end, they never found out what happened to the laptop. What might have happened is someone broke into the house and replaced the present with duds that had the same wrapping paper. That would suck. Coming in at number 7, we have the night before Christmas. If you're gonna put some work out there, you better slap your name on it because people will try and take credit for it if you don't. To this day, no one knows who sent the poem "'Twas a Night Before Christmas" to the Troy newspaper in 1823. The author, Clement Clark Moore, came forward to take credit for it, but there are several people who think it would have been impossible for Moore to write this piece. For one, the dude was a sourpuss who had no love in his heart. That's a real thing that people would say about him. And when rewriting the poem, he wrote the names of the two reindeer as Donner and Blitzen as we all know them. But the only reason reason that those names are like that is because of a printing error. The original names were Dunder and Blitzen, which are Dutch for thunder and lightning. Coming in at number 5 is the Arson Bandit. Back in the 1970s, a series of fires were lit in a small town in the southern United States. These were violent acts that seemed to be all targeted at family homes, but then again it might have just been random. 8 fires were lit for unknown reasons, and all of them were done on Christmas Eve within a 5-mile radius of each other. It would seem that none of these families had anything in common with each other, so these fires were most likely lit at random. Someone was out there and just wanted to watch the world burn. Next on the list we have Kimberly Maria McLean. This is a wild story. Kimberly McLean was married to a very wealthy man in Texas. The two of them had a family, but he was very suspicious of her. Kimberly was a very secretive person, and she would tell her husband very little about her past. Eventually her lies started to catch up with her, and her husband wanted the truth. Kimberly kept lying. This led to her husband divorcing her, and this made Kimberly fall into a deep depression. On Christmas Eve, she would walk onto her in-laws' front lawn and take her own life. This launched a massive investigation, and it turns out that Kimberly McLean had been using a fake identity this whole time. Her husband didn't even know her as Kimberly. The name he knew her as the entire time was Lori Erica Ruff, and that was the third identity she had used. She had been jumping from persona to persona ever since she was 17 years old when she ran away from home. She was able to take the identity of a dead person and get a social insurance number, and then she changed her identity again when she moved to Texas. Coming in at number 2 we have Tracey Mertens. Tracey Mertens was dating Joey Cavanagh, and the two of them were raising their children together. They weren't in the best relationship, and Joey had an on-again off-again battle with drugs. This led to him constantly owing people money. They had just moved to a new town, and it was just a few days before Christmas when they were all set to settle down. Tracey went back to their old home to grab the last few things, but in that moment she was attacked. 2 men grabbed her, tied her up, and started to interrogate her to find out where her boyfriend was. They would later take her to a church and try to kill her by lighting her on fire. She would survive long enough to give her story to the police, but due to complications she would die a few days later. To this day, no one knows who might have killed Tracey Mertens. Her boyfriend Joey Cavanagh has been questioned several times about who could have committed these crimes, but he insists that he has no idea who could have done this. And coming at the number 1 spot we have the disappearance of Ben Smart and Olivia Hope. This was one of the biggest missing person cases to ever hit New Zealand. This took place right after Christmas. Ben Smart and Olivia Hope were having a big night of partying. They were seen at the Furno Lodge, which was a hot spot that night. There were a ton of people celebrating. The two of them met a stranger that offered them a ride back to a yacht where the two of them could keep partying all night long. They jumped on the boat and got ferried over to this yacht. I mean, it would be hard to say no to something like that. Well, this would be the last time that anyone would see them. Their parents would report them missing, and after a thorough investigation, they found that Scott Watson could be the killer. He was later convicted of killing both of them, but to this day, the remains of Ben Smart and Olivia Hope have never been found. Some people believe that Scott is innocent, and he has appealed this case several times. In 2020, the case was reopened to investigation.
Starting off this list at number 10, we have a story called The Naughty List. One night, a boy named Eddie awoke to the sound of footsteps. He went downstairs to check it out and saw a man dressed in red and white with a hat and a white beard and a big round belly, and thought to himself, did I just catch Santa? As he got closer, he felt like something was off about the jolly old Saint Nick he knew so much about. When this fake Santa turned around and saw Eddie, he told him to run back up to bed or else he would end up on the naughty list. Eddie headed toward the stairs to head back to bed, but ended up sticking around and peeking around the corner to spy on Santa and see what he could see. Eddie watched him head towards the fireplace to head up the chimney, but all of a sudden Eddie saw green flames that knocked the Santa back onto the ground. Suddenly, a creature began to crawl out of the fireplace where the green flames were coming from. This monster looked at the Santa character and said what Eddie assumed was his real name. Bruce, the monster said. Bruce replied that he had done his job. He said he had just gone to 10,000 houses like the monster asked him to do. The monster replied that one of the rules was to not let a human child see you, which Eddie realized was him. Bruce asked for a second chance, but the monster refused. Eddie closed his eyes because he was scared of what was to come next. Eddie heard a loud crunch that was followed by a few more crunches and then a snapping sound. As Eddie opened his eyes, he saw the monster looking right at him with red and white pants hanging out of his mouth. He ate Santa! Well, not the real Santa, of course.
Coming in at number 9, we have the Gryther. What else is up north with St. Nick and all the elves? You think with all the magic up there, there would have to be something else that might not be as nice. Well, that is where the Gryther lives. He's big and bad and will come to your home if you do one thing wrong. See, the Gryther is an ugly beast that lives in a cave. It's said that his cave is the coldest and dampest place in the whole world. Not where I would build my first home, but the Gryther doesn't seem to be bothered by his living situation. He's as tall as a tree and has long, thick arms and fists big enough that they could wrap around your head. His skin is see-through. You can see all the horrible veins that are plastered throughout his body. Blue and red span all the way through his should-be corpse, but still, all of this he is fine with. He doesn't mind his appearance one bit. I like his body positivity, but what he doesn't like is his name. The Gryther's ears are so big that he can hear all the way around the world. Every time someone says his name, he hears them and his ears grow bigger. If you say his name, he will use them to fly to your home. He'll wrap his hands around your head and Gryther you, which is popping your head like a tomato. So telling that story is a great way to make sure that your kids sleep tight on Christmas Eve, especially because you have to say the name Gryther like 13 times to finish the story.
In our number 8 spot today, we have a story called Silent Nightmare. This story is a cautionary tale to those who stay up waiting for Santa on Christmas Eve instead of soundly sleeping like they're supposed to be. This story says that staying awake is behavior that can land you on the naughty list. Of course, it is every person's nightmare to end up on the naughty list, because who wants a lump of coal waiting for them under the tree on Christmas morning? Well, the story goes that if you stay up waiting for Santa, you are about to meet a fate potentially worse than just a lump of coal. Since Santa knows everything, like when you're sleeping or awake, or if you've been good or bad, he'll definitely know if you're trying to sneak a peek of him delivering gifts. Apparently, if you stay awake on Christmas Eve, Santa will throw you in his gift sack and take you all the way back to the North Pole, where he then makes you join all the other elves. After all, how do you think he gets all those small elves?
Coming in number 7, we have the witches. The best part of the holidays is the amount of food they get to consume guilt-free. It's the time of year you get to get fat and plump, and you might as well enjoy it because it's going to be a while before it comes back. Well, you better watch out because not everyone who's handing out sweets has good intentions. This Christmas witch goes door to door during Christmas time. She'll knock on your door and request for a donation. Christmas is a cold time of year and there are plenty of homes that have more than enough. If you give her a donation, she will thank you and be on her way. If you reject it, she will do something in return. She will offer you some sweets. She will say, if you can't receive, then you must give. It will seem like a nice gesture, but it's actually a trap. For as soon as you eat the candy, your stomach will turn, your skin will turn gray, your teeth will fall out, and your hair will come loose. For if you can't give the witch a simple gift on the holiday season, she will take your beauty and your youth.
In our number 6 spot today, we have the Underworld Toy Shop. This is a story of the toy shop that we don't hear about. We all know that Christmas gifts are made by the elves in their joy-filled workshop, but apparently there's a workshop beneath the one that we all know about that is dark and filled with some pretty creepy things. First of all, the elves who work in it are the elves who lack any sort of holiday cheer. These elves are mean and selfish and had been banished from the happy workshop. These elves make toys that are easily breakable, and they have no love put into them. There's an elf named Urgra who used to work in the happy workshop. He had loved creating toys for all the boys and girls around the world and put so much love into each gift he made. He loved the toys he created so much he wished that he could keep them for himself. One day, another elf who was a friend of his made a beautiful music box that was meant to be a gift for a king's son. When Urgra saw this music box, he had never wanted anything so badly in his whole life, so he decided to devise a plan to sneak into the workshop at night and take it for himself. To his surprise, as he was executing his plan, his friend who had made the music box ended up coming into the shop, catching him in the act. Stealing is an unforgivable act among the elves, and this ended up getting him banished into the Underworld Toy Shop, never to see the light of day or the magic of Christmas again.
Okay, coming in number 5, we have fart cookies. When your mom tells you not to eat cookies because it's going to spoil your appetite, you better listen. listen, because you might get pranked so hard it'll ruin your Christmas. This story follows a brother and sister. The mother laid out a tray of homemade cookies and told them not to eat them until after dinner. The kids waited for their mother to leave the room and then pounced on the cookies, eating them so fast at first they didn't notice the horrible taste. Both him and his sister rushed to the bathroom and started puking. If they had listened, they might have noticed the can of skunk spray that their mother added to the cookies.
In our number 4 spot today, we have Christmas Eve hollering. This story takes place on Christmas Eve at the Willinger family cabin. John and Elizabeth Willinger have always had the best parties in town, and they always took place at their cabin. This Christmas Eve, they were of course having a Christmas party, and John was in the middle of telling a story when the entire party heard John's hunting dogs outside just suddenly start barking like crazy. John went to go and scope out what was happening out there, but his grown son Charlie volunteered to go in his place. Charlie got his coat and his boots and headed out into the night, and the entire party sat in silence waiting for him to return. After 10 minutes of waiting in the quiet, everyone in the party heard Charlie screaming outside, and they all ran out to help. When they got outside, they saw all the hunting dogs huddled up together, clearly terrified. They followed Charlie's footprints in the snow in hopes that it would lead to him, and the screaming continued. Charlie was screaming, "Help! They've got me!" and everyone was frantically searching. Eventually, Charlie's screams began to grow fainter, but they were clearly coming from above, spiraling into the night sky.
Coming in number 3, we have the bad elf. There was an elf who didn't want to work. He hated his job, but he couldn't quit. I mean, you're an elf working the North Pole. What do you do when you don't want to be a toy maker? Update your resume and start shopping it around with the polar bears? Nah, I think you're just gonna work. But it was more than just him hating his job. He hated Santa. He hated Christmas. He hated everything to do with the holiday season, so he wanted to bring the whole thing down. He started to make bad toys and didn't tell anyone. But they weren't just broken, they were traps, and even Santa didn't know, which is really bad as an employer. I mean, you're on top, you're the boss of the whole empire. If things go wrong, then you're the one who's going to take the heat. Oh, and did things ever go wrong? The toys made it to all the kids, and millions of kids got hurt. After this, no one trusted Santa, and his stock price plummeted into the ground. Santa searched and searched for who could have done this. This elf might have ruined Christmas forever, but with all of his searching, he never found out, and none of the other elves knew either. It would seem that the bad elf was too good at his job and too good at hiding his affairs. And after he got away with his plan, he was excited to make toys again to see if he could ruin Christmas again the next year.
In our number 2 spot today, we have a mystery under the tree. Little Timmy was super excited when he woke up around 8 a.m. on Christmas morning. He ran down the stairs to see his parents sitting on the couch having their morning coffee. Timmy was obviously immediately ready to begin opening his gifts under the tree. He saw one that had a bit of a different wrapping paper than the rest and thought to himself that maybe it was a little bit different because it was special. Timmy's parents said that they actually weren't sure where that present had come from, but Timmy assumed that they were just pulling his leg and trying to play a trick on him. He began to unwrap it and saw that it was a package with his name and address on the shipping label. He opened the package, and all that was in it was a letter. The letter read, "Dear Timothy Pines, I watch you while you're sleeping. I know when you're awake. Go to sleep tonight, Timmy, and please do not wake for your own sake. Happy holidays. SC." Who the heck dropped this note off? Because it could not have been the real Santa, and what the heck did they mean? What is gonna happen to Timmy?
Number 7. Holly. Everyone loves to decorate for the holidays, whether it be lights or tinsel or holiday trees or fake snow. Traditionally, a bit of greenery has always been a part of the festive decor, whether it be mistletoe, ivy, or holly. But do you know why we decorate with holly? Holly was used originally because it was believed it protected your home and family against witches. Yeah, true story. Another strange and kind of creepy thing about why we choose holly first when it comes to that splash of green and red is that holly was originally meant to represent the crown of thorns, which Jesus wore. Holly both has thorns and those cheery yet apparently gruesome bright red berries, which obviously in this case would represent beads of blood. Making our way down the list, number 6, we have Wren Day. This is an ancient Irish Christmas tradition that basically involved killing small birds, wrens. It's believed to date back to the 1940s in Ireland. On December 26th, also known as St. Stephen's Day, young boys would go out wren hunting. Once they successfully catch and kill the bird, they will place it on the top of a pole and then decorate it. From there, they would carry their dead bird door to door. They would typically be dressed in straw masks or would have their face darkened with burnt cork. Then at each house they would sing the Wren Boy song and demand money. There you go.
Number 5. Christmas colors. Blood, you'd think, would be an uncommon part of our holiday celebrations and festive cheer, and yet, the holiday colors we are most used to seeing are red and green, white and gold. White is obviously something that has come to represent snow. Gold represents wealth, though originally it was actually meant to symbolize one of the 3 gifts that the wise men gave to Jesus. The gift, when given, was meant to represent kingship and stands as a symbol of wealth and royalty even now. Green is meant to represent the eternal evergreen and immortality. Red, however, is meant to once again represent the blood of Jesus. So just think about that when you reach for extra cranberry sauce on the holidays.
Moving on to number 4, we have the horse's skull. Nowadays we decorate our homes with trees and bright lights and cute little wreaths. But back in the day in South Wales, people celebrated by decorating a horse's skull and placing it on a pole. This was referred to as Mary Lwyd or Holy Mary. The skulls were decorated with bells and ribbons, and then a sheet was placed over the back of the head. Then they would take their horse skull and go door to door with it, singing and showing off their creation. On top of that, they would even sometimes challenge families to a battle of rhyming insults in Welsh. After that's all done, they would come inside for some food. I personally thought those little elves on the shelves were creepy, but that's nothing in comparison to this.
Number 3. Yule Cat. In Iceland, it's important to make sure you get your hands on some new clothes before Christmas Day, as if you don't, you'll have to face the wrath of the Yule Cat. The Yule Cat is a giant monstrous beast who is believed, according to Icelandic holiday folklore, to roam the countryside, hunting down those who have not yet received new clothes as a holiday gift to wear for Christmas Eve. Initially, people used the Yule Cat as incentive to motivate and scare workers into working harder so they could earn a nice new set of clothing to wear on Christmas Eve. Hard workers would be rewarded with new clothes, and those that didn't work hard enough would not receive any, leaving them to become prey for the fearsome and ferocious Yule Cat.
And at number 2, we have the Snapdragon. This was a traditional game that families would play back in 1600 England. The game, Snapdragon, sometimes called Flapdragon, would involve raisins and almonds being placed in a bowl of brandy that was then set on fire. Then all players would stick their hands in the flaming bowl and try to retrieve the raisins. Once you successfully pull out a raisin, you must extinguish it by putting it in your mouth. Sounds like a very dangerous game to be playing, but believe it or not, mainly kids would play this game. But eventually, the popularity of the game died down as people were getting serious burns playing it. Well, no duh, you're literally submerging your hand into flames and then eating a fiery raisin. Like, what did you expect? There's no way that could have gone right.